Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Bankroll Burners, the poker podcast for players who can't stop getting it in bad. I'm Mike.
And I'm Josh.
And this week, as always, we are going to be bringing you some poker hands we played recently. We're going to be going through them, talking about whether we played them well. Usually we didn't. And perhaps learning about how we could play them better next time. For me this week, I have a hand from Mohegan Sun Pocono. I was up visiting the in-laws in Scranton, and let me tell you, Josh, that casino is a dump.
I believe it.
I mean, I don't know if you've been to Wilkes Barre, Pennsylvania, but it's a nice enough place. But
I have been there with you, and we considered going to the casino before realizing that A, there wasn't enough time, and B, all the reviews said this place is a dump.
Yeah, that's right. Of course you've been there. But I will say they just moved the poker room. So I'd been there like a year ago, and it was like maximum dumpage. But they changed the poker room. They moved it elsewhere in the casino, and it's much nicer now. So that the poker room specifically is nicer, but the casino by and large has not improved.
Yeah, I have to say I was pleasant. I've been pleasantly surprised by both Philly casinos I've been to. Like I thought when we went to Live together, it was actually pretty nice. I mean, it was a fine poker room. Like it was a nice.
Oh yeah,
it was like a decent casino. And even when I went to Rivers, which I think is kind of seen as the bottom end of the quality totem pole in terms of Philly casinos, it was also quite nice and like it was reasonable. It's no Encore Boston Harbor, but they have their own.
Right?
They have their own set of. I mean, but they have their own set of issues because the poker. When I look down, it's like wow, rake max at rake capped at $5. I'm like, what is this incredibleness?
That must be nice. Well, but yeah, I'll save my my Mohegan Sun Pocono hand for a little later. Why don't you start us off?
Sounds good. Yeah. So I've been as I've been mentioning recently, I've been kind of splitting my time between. Encore Boston Harbor whenever I do weekday sessions just for convenience's sake. There's a lot of good transit options in and out like on weeknights. And between some of the New Hampshire card rooms on the weekends when I get a chance to kind of drive up there just because I do think the game is better. The rake is a lot lower. The rake at these hands are both going to be from Chasers, which does 10% up to $5 plus a $2 promo rake on hands over 20. So, and they actually have like decent promos. Not that I really expect to win any of them, although I did win one just yesterday, which is my first one ever, and might actually work out to being like break even. It's like
there you go.
Crazy.
You're officially a gambler. You won a high hand.
Yeah, exactly. So it's been kind of interesting to continue playing in both those spots. Do see some amount of overlap between the people, but it's been a good time. But this hand comes from a session I just played yesterday at Chasers, which again is one of those New Hampshire card rooms. It's a lovely spot. I mean, people kind of give card rooms a bad rap sometimes. And I mean, from our trips to Boston Billiards that it is kind of like, it just feels sketchy. Like it's sometimes, so dark and
occasionally, yeah.
And weird. Chasers is like an old restaurant building. It's very like well lit and like homey. And I do enjoy that vibe. It's more, makes you feel like you're actually doing something instead of like, weird. But anyway, in this was a great table. The action was medium, I would say. But there were a lot of like limp. There's a lot of limp calling going on. The straddle was on most of the time, probably 3/4 of the time. There were a couple people that just didn't really like it. One quick note, another reason why I've really preferred going to Chasers recently is because Encore doesn't do bomb pots. And I really think that bomb pots, like I've kind of come to respect bomb pots as really, really encouraging action by just giving such a high percentage of money to people who are not, studied players, because bomb pots are just so much chance. Like there is a much more of a gambling element where someone who is not great at poker, and might feel out of their depth a bit sometimes in a game with no bomb pots can just like scoop very easily by just hitting.
Right.
And it's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I really feel like it really encourages people to just play and like really loosens up the table a lot. Because people also then realize, wow, I just scooped 2 boards with 10-6. I should really play more hands.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah, I agree 100% on bomb pots. They're great for action. I wish we did more of them down here in Jacks. But so what's the setup here? What are the stacks? I
Oh,
assume this is 1-3.
and not to drag it on even longer, but we also do two. It's also two bomb pots per 30 minutes at Chasers, which is quite a lot. It's like
That's
once
a ton of bomb pots.
what because it's once per dealer change, and then whoever wins it gets a bomb pot button, which they can use on their button for a second bomb pot.
Interesting. Okay.
Which is cool. I mean, that's so like if you win the bomb pot, you win position for the second one.
That's kind of neat.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a 1-3 game. The straddle's on. I'm the effective stack in this hand with about 700. So a little over 100 big blinds, even with the straddle involved.
Cool.
And I am sitting in the hijack. The game here at Chasers is 8 max, which is awesome. I like 8 max a lot more than 9 max. It just, again, kind of encourages people to play more hands. A lot of fun. So the low jack is going to start this hand with a limp. The low jack has been just doing a lot of limping. And one thing I've noticed, the low jack is one of those players whose limp folds a lot. Like, because, it limps around enough. Like when I fold, a lot of other people will happily limp behind. And so there'll be a big limp pot that, they've clearly committed themselves to limp folding a good amount of the time for a high price. So I look down at 8-7 of spades in the hijack, and I like to raise it up here.
Great. Yeah, I would. I mean, in low stakes poker from the hijack, I'm pretty much always raising 8-7 of spades. Like I know you're technically supposed to fold it sometimes, but like, come on, people.
Yeah, I mean, there's some dynamics, right? Like I'd be more likely to raise it if the straddle weren't on because I'd want to be more deep stacked. But I'm still looking down at my stack of 700 with a lot of other big stacks around. Pretty happy to be doing that. The button is now going to 3-bet, but he's going to choose a very small sizing. He's going to go to 60. And then it folds back to me. And I decide to call here, which I think is a little bit loose. But I'm getting like 3-1, given the size he's making it, the limper and the straddle. So I think I'm not going to be calling like, random aces and crap. Like I'd rather have a suited connector type hand. And
yeah, no, I don't think this is a loose defend, really. I mean, it sucks to not have position here.
Yes, I mean, absolutely. And I did consider folding briefly, but I was like, look, my hand has good playability.
This is pretty much the best suited connector. Anyway, and I don't know if the numbers are behind that, but I know 9-8 has bad things about it, so it's the highest one that isn't 9-8. So I don't know, 8-7, 7-6, they're good. If
he made it like 75 or 80, do you think we can fold?
I think usually you want to have like something like 6 times what you have to call, somewhere in that neighborhood,
which we would easily.
So I think, then I think you can call even. I mean, I think you can fold sometimes too, but I think you could call to a bigger.
Yeah, and if he like bombed it, like if he made it like 90 or something, or like 100,
sure,
then I'd fold. But I was thinking, when I saw him cutting out chips for a raise, I was kind of going back and forth, and then he made it 60, and I was like, all right, we are absolutely in. So we call. So it's the pot's going to be 135 at this point. This guy covers me. He's got a huge stack. He's been playing fairly tight from what I've seen. More raising than limping. So kind of thinking he might be. I hadn't been at the table for all that long as of this moment, so I wasn't 100% sure as to what his strategy was, but he seemed like he was a little more on the solid side. And the flop now is going to come down not fantastic. It's going to come down King 3-3 rainbow with the King of Spades.
And you have
8-7 of spades.
Of spades. Okay, I'm sorry. For some reason, I thought you guys had clubs. No, yeah. So interesting. I mean, I think you are required to defend this if he c-bets. We have a backdoor.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair, and I've been trying to do a lot more studying as work has been quiet, and I don't think that this is necessarily a situation where I would be check raising. Actually, I think it's not. I don't think this is a great bluff, but it kind of interesting to read about that there are a number paired boards, especially low paired boards, this like a solver wants you to check raise like a quarter of the time, which is just like in a single raise pot and not a 3-bet pot. Also, that's another piece here, but that is just like kind of absurd to me, that it's like, wow, like that is like a lot. Like basically if you have like any sort of double backdoor or like an over and a backdoor, like you should check raise.
That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I think that, I don't know. I mean, we're making some assumptions here about the wideness with which paired boards are being bet, which might be player dependent, of course. But
Of course, it's all in equilibrium.
I'm never going to tell someone to not throw more check raises in their game. So yeah, absolutely, I like it, but I do think that we do not have enough equity to check raise here.
No,
and
then a 3-bet pot as well, right? It's just one of these solver things that's, you know, in equilibrium in a single raise pot. You know, it's probably related to if people are betting enough, then both players should just have so many misses. My theory is it's because both players have so many misses that, like, the player with the betting lead is just going to have a huge advantage in terms of actually winning the pot.
Okay. All right. So you check, I assume.
But actually I check and he checks back.
Oh.
So yes, I probably would defend here at least one street. And then but I don't have to. He checks it back. So I tend to think he probably doesn't have a king here, because like that's just betting all the time.
I think he literally never has a single king here. He may have king sometimes.
Yep, he might have king sometimes, but I think he probably has, you know, a lot of ace high hands, a lot of like pocket queens, pocket jacks,
yeah,
you know, something like that. So the turn now is going to roll off the 4 of spades. So we do pick up the backdoor flush draw.
Sure.
And I think I decide to bet here. I think, you know, once he checks back, I think, you know, I can definitely start repping some strong hands. I mean, I probably won't have that many threes, but I can certainly have a bunch of kings. And so, you know, likely can get him to fold by the river if he's got something like pocket queens through pocket tens, you know, just repping the king.
Yeah, I actually think this is really good here to bet. I really don't like checking here. Like to plan to check raise, I don't like here, because this card doesn't really change anything, and so there's a decent chance he will check back again.
Yeah.
And so we really don't want that to happen. So I think it's important to start betting now and then bet the river again. And I actually think that you don't need to bet that large on either street, because if you're going to represent a king, you know, you could go like 2/3, and he's probably going to lay down queens, jacks, tens a lot. So.
Yeah, and I don't think I would be, you know, taking a huge like pot size bet here, just because like I don't have all that many super strong hands. Like my value, and as you've said, is mostly king X. Like maybe pocket 4s exactly, or I guess pocket 3s exactly. But yeah,
like why would you don't want to rep a range that's ridiculously thin? Like you'd rather represent like a good king, which you can easily have as a bet defend to a 3-bet. You can have king queen, you know, king jack. Whatever.
Yeah, and another thing that I've been kind of learning as I study is, you know, I've been trying to work on making bigger bets in general, because I think I kind of default to like 1/3, you know, less than half pot sizes way too often, and that's just like, you know, not actually. You really want to be able to use a wide range, even in C bets. You know, you can use different bet sizings depending on the makeup of the board, but. So another thing I've been trying to focus on is, you know, I feel like before I might just throw out a bet of like $50 here, but I do bet 80 here.
I like it, yeah.
And he calls.
I might even go a tad bigger maybe, but like 85. Who cares, right? 80, 85, same thing.
Yep.
Okay, and he calls. Yeah, I mean, he could be calling here. I think at this point he probably he probably doesn't have king if he's just calling this bet.
Yeah, I still think, I mean, you know, obviously the bet is bigger than half pot, so it doesn't necessarily keep his whole range in there, but I would suspect that what I described earlier was sort of ace high hands and, you know, pairs below the king are probably all continuing.
He might not continue with all his ace highs, but yeah, sure. I think you've probably thinned his range a bit, but I think you're gonna have to fire. We were doing this with the intention of needing to fire a river barrel. So yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So the river is a really interesting card, and I think leads to the key decision of the hand. And the river is gonna roll off the ace of spades. So we make the flush, which is awesome. We love making backdoor flushes.
Yes.
And it also is a really interesting card in that it's an ace, and like this should like kind of hit his range very hard.
Sure. I don't know. I think you're putting more ace high hands in his range than there really are, because like we have to think about what he would 3-bet you with pre-flop. There's like ace queen. Obviously, there's ace king, but he doesn't.
He doesn't have ace king. We assume
almost certainly. So ace queen, right, and then like ace jack suited, and he's got to be folding some percentage of those hands to your turn barrel. So, and betting some of them himself on the flop too. So I like, just to continue. So I actually would really put his range at like queens. I think it is much heavier to like queens, jacks, tens. I would say I would put him. Yeah, I really think it's more likely his hand. Those are the hands he has.
I guess he could have like suited wheel aces too that like call with a gutter. But one would think that if you're 3-betting, if you kind of read enough to be 3-betting suited wheel aces as your bluffs, that you would continue a lot when you miss.
Agreed, especially when you flop a backdoor. So.
Yeah. So that all points taken. So are you kind of thinking about making so given that this ace rolls off then, and that actually is a really bad card for getting value from like queens, jacks, tens, would you kind of go small, like a third here, to try and just get a crying call?
I mean, so I think yes. So first of all, I want to think about like intuitively, yes. I think my like level 1 response to this would be like, I want to bet $100 and just get a crying call from queens. But I think we do need to take a second and think about first of all, what bluffs do we have here and what would we do with them? And I actually think, what bluffs do we have here? Really? Like 5-6?
Maybe 5, yeah, like 5-6 suited. Like one of the 3 combos of 5-6 suited, I guess.
Right. Yeah, so...
Like, maybe we have some ace-x suited ourselves that we're bluffing with a gutter, but that now we have top pair, and we'd probably, also take a small sizing.
Right, so, if we have 5-6 here... I just, what hands do we want to go balls to the... Like, if we're going balls to the wall with every flush, we're so unbalanced here, I guess. So, if we're going to take a huge sizing, I would want to have, probably, the nut flush, so we're blocking his queens and making it more likely he has an ace or something.
Like queen jack of spades, so we block a lot of his pairs.
I feel like we can go balls to the wall because he likely has an ace or nothing, and we can get paid big.
Yeah.
So
and queen jack of spades, by the way, I think would be a great check raise candidate on the flop.
Oh, for sure.
Just to bring it back to the flop, but yeah. I thought this was kind of a weird spot, and I agree with you talking about it now that his range is probably more weighted towards those hands. And if I agree, if we're blocking those hands that we think he might have, and we weight his range more towards ace-x, because then we can probably go with a larger sizing.
Right. So I like about $100 here is what I would do. I mean, I don't think betting large is terrible. I just think we're going to get so many folds from the hands he likely holds.
Yeah, I think even betting 100 versus 200, I do think we're probably going to get more than twice as many calls with betting 100 versus 200.
I agree. I think if we bet 200, he is only calling us with ace queen or ace jack, which he has. Yeah. We don't know how much of that he has, but not a lot.
Well, I think you convinced me that my play was certainly not ideal, as I decide to check here because I think that I was kind of thinking that he has so many random ace highs in his range, and he may not call with queens through tens anyway, given the composition of the board, that I would prefer to set up check raise when he bets his ace.
But he won't call your check raise.
That's true. That's true.
First, we're making a few assumptions here. He has enough ace-x in his range that to bet. He will bet the ace-x in the face of a backdoor flush, which he should, but a lot of players won't. And that he'll call a check raise. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that, and I mean, especially given that I think as we break down his range, he's certainly weighted more towards the pairs and less towards the aces, given, you would expect more ace-high hands probably to either continue flop, given having less showdown value, or to fold turn, given, my aggression, that, I do agree with you as we kind of lay it out, so I do think that I probably shouldn't have played it this way, but I do check, and he does check it back, which is unfortunate, but does make sense as we think about it, and I never found out what he had. But yeah, he did make a snide comment I called him $60 before the flop with 7-8, huh?
Ah, love that.
Which, I almost felt compelled to point out to him, well, I didn't call $60, I called 35. But, then he got up and left for the 2-5 game, and it almost made me want to follow.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, wow. You're thinking this guy's like a sort of solid player, and he makes a comment like that. That's interesting.
Yeah, it was quite funny. So,
it's funny
and that was the other thing, right? Is because I was thinking he was more of a, thinking player where he might fire more, like with total misses at like this ace. But,
sure.
Right, where like someone might, right? Like you or I might, if checked to on the river after that bet, be like, yep, I should probably rep this when I'm holding like a complete brick, right? Like a suited connector of diamonds, which didn't even have a backdoor on the flop, and so we elected to check, right? Like,
yeah, I would fire the ace a lot for sure, especially if I had an ace. Not only would I fire it, I'd probably fire quite large once checked.
Yeah. I guess you wouldn't have too many total misses because you wouldn't be calling the turn unless you planned on doing some weird shenanigans. But yeah, so it kind of interesting, and as I learned some nice tidbits about him where I would not make that play again. But it was just an interesting river decision, I thought.
No, it is interesting, and I see where your head's at. I just personally like live players, so unless someone's like showing themselves to have the propensity to make river bets too, like you have to they check back so much.
I know, and being out of position just sucks, as we said earlier.
Being out of position really sucks. But I mean, I think betting large here, by the way, isn't awful. I think it's okay to bet large here. I would rather take a small size with like the vast majority of our range, but I don't think betting large here can be terrible. But yeah, I think we do need to bet. So.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that totally makes sense. But anyway, that was a good live and learn moment. Something where I got to apply some theory and do so incorrectly, as is tradition in Bankroll Burners.
So I've got this hand from Mohegan Sun Poker now.
So this is a 1-2 game?
So the structure of this game, I have to say, is awesome. It is 1-2 500 cap.
Nice.
So it's a sick game. And it's all regs,
How many tables did they have running?
1.
Okay, so it's really all regs. Because I was going to say, if it was like 5 tables, you could probably find a less reg-infested game.
No, but they're not good regs.
Sure.
Yeah. No, they're not good regs. But they all know each other and whatever. So
is this the only? Hold on. Is this the only game running?
Well, so it's funny. It was, but then like a bunch of 4 guys talked me into being their 5th to fire a 1-3-6 PLO game, which was like the worst decision I ever made. I'm so horrendous at PLO, but
yes, I've lost.
It was fun, so whatever. But yeah,
I won a lot of money playing PLO online, like in our online home game servers. And then I lost a ton playing it live in like Jacksonville, and it's like wow. And I was like, nope. You know what? Everyone needs to have that experience of just getting torched at PLO, so that you can realize that you should stop playing PLO.
Yeah, for me, this is the second time I've had that experience. Maybe I'll learn the third time.
Maybe once a year. Once every a couple of years. Okay, so you're playing 1-2 500 cap. I assume you bought in for the maximum to punish the bad regs.
Of course, but this particular hand, we're going to be 4-10 effective with the main villain.
What a nit.
I know.
Not really.
Well, it's him. It's not. I cover. Come on now. And this is a 9-handed game. So we have a +1 limp, and this is like, by the way, I think my second orbit.
Okay.
So I don't know anything. Other than that, the guy to my immediate left is like deep as balls. That's the only thing I know. So okay, +1 limps, and I open 4 of spades, 4 of hearts from the low jack, which is a hand that I mix between limping and raising.
Yep.
And I make a 12, and the big blind calls, who is an older gentleman, and then the limper also calls, who is an even older gentleman.
Great way of describing it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's fairly standard. You could probably, I don't know, maybe you can even go a little bit bigger to try and enforce being in position, but
yeah.
And being so deep, it's like one one of these weird intricacies that I know like Bart talks about a lot is like, oh, when you're in position and you want to make sure you're in position and you're super deep. When you're deep, things just kind of go, sizes get wonky, It's like we talked about, I think we talked about it last week as well, or last episode with Oth, where it's like, when you're super duper deep, like 3-bet sizing like switches, where you want to be 3-betting bigger in position and smaller out of position.
Right, or something. Yeah.
There's some weird stuff going on, but I'm really just nitpicking. I like, who doesn't like opening fours?
Right. So we open the fours. We get 3 ways to a $36 flop. Probably a little more than that, or a little less.
That's all right.
But about $36. And the flop is gin. We get 4 of diamonds, 6 of spades, 6 of diamonds.
6 of diamonds, 6 of spades, 4 of diamonds.
Yeah, so we flop le boat.
Place, that's okay. We flop a boat.
Yep.
Awesome.
It checks to me. What do you like here?
I like to bet.
Okay.
It's multi-way. It's a paired board. Both of those would lead me towards betting smaller, on the smaller side. Maybe, but I don't think we have to bet like $10. Like we can probably bet like 15, somewhere between 15 and 20, like a 40, somewhere between like 40% and half pot.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably at equilibrium you are supposed to use a very small sizing here, I would guess. But like, and low stakes live play, a lot of times you can size up and people don't notice, so you can kind of get away with it.
Yeah, but I think like if we potted it, people would probably notice. Like if we bet.
Yeah,
like 40.
I agree. I think that would be nuts to like pot it here. But I ended up betting 12, which is definitely on the smaller side. But,
yep, I think that's fine. Can't be wrong.
No, yeah, and the big blind folds and the limper calls.
All right, so 60 in the pot.
So it's at this point in the hand that I have a thought.
That's dangerous.
Yeah, it's not recommended, but I'm thinking to myself, can we get stacks in?
Okay.
And because we're fairly deep, and it's a single raise pot, and so I mean, I want to get stacks in.
Of
clearly,
course.
I have effectively the nuts, and I'm trying to think like how can we best do that. So the turn is a 10 of clubs, so it's basically a brick.
Yes, so I would say, in reference to your question, we kind of have to think about his range and what parts of his range we can sort of get value from. And the 10 of clubs, in some ways, is a card that is tough, that makes it tougher to get all the money in, because a portion of his range is certainly like small pocket pairs. Like I know, you and I know these live games. 7s, 8s, and 9s, we would say that can't be in his range. He limp called, but. It most certainly could be in his range, right? And those are hands that honestly would like call $100 bet here, if and like a river shove potentially if the board stayed low, but possibly not if
you have any like full bricks. You had like deuce and then like
deuce or something.
Yeah, right. Like deuce.
But just thinking about if we want to get all the money in, it's I think it's just important to kind of construct his range here. He could have flush draws for sure. And those hands, it'll be difficult to get stacks in unless the flush hits. And then, we may actually be able to. 6s, it probably wouldn't be that hard, but I guess it depends. I know you don't have reads on these players, but it does kind of depend on what kind of old man he is, where if he's knit old man, he's not going to have that many 6s. But if it's like, I want to see flops old man, he's going to have like 8-6 offsuit.
Right, and I don't know because I just sat down. I will tell you he wasn't I like to see flops old man, but I didn't know at the time.
Right.
So I agree. I really think that if he has like 7s, 8s, 9s, we're probably not gonna get stacks in.
Right.
So the question is like, if the only part of his range we're really getting stacks in from is like a 6, like should we try?
Right, and that's why I say it's so important to know what kind of old man he is, because it really depends on how many 6s he has in his range, right? Because he's only got 6 combos each of 7s, 8s, and 9s. He's got some amount of flush draws that, would call us, and on all those hands, I would say would probably call a small to medium-sized bet and probably not call like an overbet.
Right, I think overbetting here would be a mistake.
Right, but if he's got like every offsuit 6 between like 6-5 and like 6-8 and like ace-6 and like king-6,
Sure.
then it might not be a mistake, right? Because then he's got like so many combos of 6s to go along with those that like we actually might be able to get stacks in, and we might want to target specifically that portion of the range so that we can get stacks in.
Yeah, I mean, the worst case obviously is if we go like overbet and induce some kind of hero fold, but because like, yeah, I don't know. It's tricky. Like, I really wasn't sure what kind of sizing to take in game. I mean, ultimately, I decided on $60. I decided to bet pot. I don't know what you think about that. But.
I think that's okay on the. I think it's okay on the turn too, because we can kind of evaluate and see if, I don't know, maybe we can kind of figure out what part of the range he's in, because then we can, I think river sizing is going to depend a lot on that. Like if the river rolls off a brick, right, then we might want to I don't know, maybe we might just want to bet large on river either. I was kind of thinking like, oh, if he's got like flush draws, and again, limp calls can certainly have just an unbelievable number of flush draws.
Absolutely.
Which means that would kind of incentivize going big anyway, because he might call a pot size bet on the turn with a flush draw, and then it's like on the river, either he makes a flush with that segment of hands, or he's not calling any size bet.
Right. I agree. Like, I think betting pot here is good because I think we will get called by a number of flush draws, even ones that obviously should not be calling us. We will, like, mathematically speaking, they will.
Yeah.
So I think we can get away with betting pot here, with the understanding that we're probably, by betting pot here, giving up on getting any more value from 7s, 8s, 9s, because they're not going to call in a river bet of any size, really.
Right.
And they might not even call the $60 bet. So, like, in the moment, I kind of gave up. I decided to go for the max and kind of give up on, like, the marginal parts of his range. And I don't know if that's correct or not, but that's what I did.
Yeah, and I think, if he is the kind of guy who's playing all sorts of 6s, then I do think it's fine, because I do think we're going to get called enough when we go big that, maybe we should even go, like, a little bit bigger and try and set up a river shove. But also, maybe not, because we basically have to bet 100 to set up a river shove. Because if we bet 100, then we'd basically have a pot size bet behind.
So we bet 60 and he calls.
Okay, well that's great. We get value.
We get value. So we're now 180 in this pot. We've got 325 behind.
Yep.
The river is the ace of diamonds.
Okay, well that definitely fits really well with our game plan. Is what
right?
Because wow, okay, now he's definitely not putting any more money in with a one pair hand, but he's definitely putting a lot more money in. Well, I guess it doesn't fit perfectly with our game plan, because this could be a scare card to a 6 is the annoying part.
Right, he might be like, oh, he has aces,
or he has a flush.
Right.
Oh, you caught that diamond. Oh, you caught that diamond, didn't you?
Yeah, exactly. No, I didn't think it was the best card in the world, because I thought it was, like, possibly good for me. Like, he might perceive it as being good for me, and I wasn't really sure. But, so he checks. So what would you do?
And that's annoying, too, because as we all know, a lot of live players will happily check call, donk when they make flushes.
Right? Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that would have been sick if he donked.
Yeah, we would have been, like, if he just bet 100 here, we'd just, like, it would just be great. Yeah. I mean, I think we should bet.
Right. Yes, but how much?
It's really, really interesting. This is a weird bet sizing thing where it's like we have such, like, maybe we do just want to target, like, flushes and just, like bet, like, pot or, like, 200. Like, I don't think we can jam. Because I think jamming is definitely going to fold out all his 6s. I would think that jamming should not get called by 6s when the front door flush comes in.
Yeah, that's true. Jamming's probably too greedy, but I think if we bet, like, pot again, the flush would call. Or sorry, a 6 would call.
Yeah, absolutely.
The flush will call a shove. I'm pretty sure.
I would think a flush would call the shove, and I would think but I would think a flush and most 6s are going to call a pot size bet. Probably all 6s, unless he really talks himself into a hero fold.
Yeah. I agree.
Because, like, we have a lot. We might have worse value too. Like, Maybe not. Maybe I mean I don't.
I think we're only going to
The ace of diamonds is a weird card because it means like a lot of our bluffs would contain like the ace of diamonds.
Yeah, I think like if I'm betting here pot, like I'm representing at least a flush, right? Or at least trips. I don't know. Like, what am I even betting pot? Like, what does a pot size bet represent for me?
Well, potting the turn, like maybe it could be something like ace 10. When we bet, we could because we could continue on the flop with ace 10.
Sure.
And then we could bet large on the turn. Given the board is pretty dynamic, and then I mean it's. But I don't know if we can. I don't know if we can bet. I don't know if we can pot the river with ace 10. That feels a little greedy.
If we pot the river with ace 10 and he jams, it's like the sickest fold ever. I don't know. It's
like
weird,
ace 10
man.
with the 10 of diamonds.
It's weird. Yeah, sure.
Maybe.
I don't think this random old dude has it in him, but I don't know. I was like.
So I think I like betting pot. I mean, is what I would say. I think
I think. The more I think about how weird betting pot is, though, like what is it exactly? I feel like betting 2/3 can represent a lot more hands and maybe be more likely to get called.
Yeah, but I think betting pot.
Maybe get check jammed on by a flush. Wouldn't that be sick?
Yeah, but I don't think that's gonna happen a whole lot. But I do think I know we want to get stacks in, but I do think jamming just isn't gonna get called enough.
Yeah.
Betting pot. I don't know that betting pot versus betting 2/3 like. Could probably go either way. It's probably close.
I think either way's fine.
Probably
anyway, I jammed.
Okay. And he snap called.
No.
Damn.
He goes deep into the tank, the old man tank, and he goes, "Did you really?" I don't know. He's saying all this stuff.
Did you catch that diamond? Yeah. See, I got my old man impression down.
Yeah, I don't know what he was thinking, but eventually he does put calling chips in.
Great.
And we get. I don't know what he had.
Probably a 6.
Probably a 6. After it was like a good old 3-minute tank, so it's probably a 6. But
well, great. I mean, well, and then if he has enough 6s and he's gonna call sometimes with 6s, then like it can't be that bad to jam if that's the case because the jam is like 2x pot almost, and so even if he only calls right, then it's back to the old quick math. If he calls half as much, we're breaking even, and if he because it's live poker, right? It's like you see so few hands that like live regs just want to call more because they're like, wow, this is the first time I've made a hand in hours. I'm putting money in. Right. And, I've been victim to that before, certainly, right? I think it's just a subconscious thing sometimes where you're like, can he, you see someone, you know what I mean? It's like you see someone else running hot and you're like, wow, how do they always have a hand? And then you pick up one and you decide to stand your ground and you're just like, oh yeah. That was a stupid call.
And then you get stacked for 200 big blind.
Right. With trips. Probably crap kicker.
Probably like 6-3.
Right.
No, I don't know. I mean, he was a nice enough guy. But it was an interesting one. I mean, I felt like in hindsight, I was like, maybe that was too greedy. Like, obviously it worked out for me and I'm pleased. But like, I don't know that I really played it correctly. So I'm glad we got to talk through it, though. I think somewheres between a 2/3 and a pot size bet is much more appropriate.
Yeah, and like, what bluffs are you jamming? Like, are you jamming 7-5?
Wouldn't that be sick?
That would be, but like, because like we can't really have a diamond in our hand, right? Which I think it would be pretty nice to have a diamond in our hand if we're structuring our bluffs.
Yeah, that's true.
So like we can't. We're not. I assume you're not ISO raising 5-7 offsuit from the low jack.
I think like we probably want to block boats. So like probably like I don't know 5-4 of clubs.
Yeah. But like, are we potting 5-4 of clubs on the turn?
Possibly. Yeah.
You're not checking back.
I don't think so. I mean, I don't know.
Okay, we interesting spot.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't know.
This is just weird, right? It kind of goes back to our discussion with my hand of like, how do we have such thick value? How are we representing? How are we keep balancing? How are we balancing?
No, I know. I'm sorry. I was confused. I was thinking that there is a double flush draw out there. Obviously, 5-4 of clubs doesn't work. Yeah, I mean, there's no bluffs. Like, it was the stupidest.
This is
jam
just like
ever,
a pure exploitative, like, this guy is not going to fold a 6, so I'm just going to jam. Which is fine. Like, that's okay to do. If you like think, if you have like seen a guy be sticky and you're like, there is no way in hell he's folding a 6 to some young whippersnapper who looks like he's a bluff machine.
I've seen enough old man be sticky, even though I hadn't seen this guy do it.
Like, you know, I've been snap called by a guy who I don't know, right? Like, sometimes it doesn't even matter what your tendencies are. It's like, if you look sufficiently young and, like, studious, they'd be like, I've been snap called on, like, a triple barrel by bottom pair, no kicker. Because he's just like, you're, a young guy bluffs a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
So, when that's the case, like, you should absolutely exploit and, you know, deviate.
Yeah, I would. I don't know that I was being that sophisticated. It was more just like me have boat, me want money. But you know, all right, let's move along here.
Okay. All right. So this is from about a week ago. This is another hand at Chasers. This is going to be about 400 effective in the 1-3 game, which I've been playing a lot and I think is really good. As I said recently, I will say just one thing that's so nice about it is that it's not the smallest game. Because, like, the 1-3 at Encore can definitely just be plagued by, like, you know, like, short stacks who wind up, like, never playing a hand or whatever. That's, you know, classic smallest game at a casino issues.
Short stack nits are, like, actively the worst thing ever for games. I absolutely cannot stand them. And
at Chasers, it's like the promo hunters is the other genre of, like, short stack nits, where it's like there are, like, certain 1-2 tables where every single hand is just a family pot because everyone's promo hunting.
Well, so Best Bet solved that a little bit. They have a 2-4 limit game, which runs always as soon as the high hand starts, that game opens up. There's like 2 tables of it. It runs until 12 p.m. The high hand's gone, and boom, every one of those tables breaks. It's so funny.
That's awesome. Yeah. But so the 1-3 game kind of, you know, has people who actually want to play poker a little bit more, and I don't get you know, scoffed at for raising.
Okay.
But this game is also good. This game was a little bit tighter on the tighter side, a lot more like kind of tight regs, but not super tight. They were more like post-flop tight, and I made a lot of money. Like they were so fit or fold. You know what I mean? It's one of these It's one of these tables where just nobody's bluffing, and so you can just bet every single flop when you raised, regardless of board texture, and you can just, you know, if somebody calls, you just know that they have a hand above a certain strength.
Yep.
And they will not raise you unless they have like a really strong hand. So a solid table like a good table overall. In this particular hand, the straddle is not on. It folds around to me in the low jack. The effective stack is 400. I raise to 15 with 5-4 of hearts.
All right.
Which is probably getting to the to be a little bit too loose.
From the low jack? Yeah, I think
it's probably borderline.
I would probably fold this like 3/4 of the time.
Yeah, which is fair.
Yeah, but I mean, you can open it sometimes.
Yeah, I think you can open once in a while. I also just think like the people behind me in general are playing pretty tight pre-flop and extremely tight post-flop. It's like I don't need to hit a whole lot to win. But they immediately prove me wrong for my assumptions, as the hijack, cutoff, and small blind all call.
Love it.
So
this is just like playing this hand like 4 ways from out of position to 2 people is terrible.
Yes. Absolutely. It is not. It is now. I'm kind of thinking, well, that didn't work. Like, I guess I'm gonna have to make something, or else I probably don't want to put a whole lot of money in.
Okay, so what happens? What do we get in the flop?
So the flop is gonna come down Queen 4-3 rainbow.
Hate it.
Queen of clubs, 4 of spades, 3 of diamonds.
Oh my god.
So we've got middle pair.
Middle pair and like basically no backdoors. Like a horrible backdoor straight draw.
That is correct. Yes. Yeah. No, I mean it's like the least disguised, most awful backdoor straight draw of all time. Yeah. So the small blind checks. And the small blind I would like to have a little background on because he will wind up being sort of the main villain in the hand.
Okay.
The small blind is this guy who kind of looks like Santa Claus. Older guy with a white beard. Not so much like Santa Claus. He looks like Sean Connery in Indiana Jones in The Last Crusade. He's been playing like super tight, and he's done these like weird moves where he's just like jams river at random times, and I have never seen him show down a bluff. But like, he also doesn't get called a lot when he does that, so it's theoretically possible that he's just poning noobs.
Okay.
But I would doubt it. But anyway, we'll get to that. And if he checks, and I elect to check here as well.
I agree.
Because my hand can absolutely improve. And like, yes, we don't have really backdoor draws, but I heard it put this way and I was like, oh, that's actually kind of an interesting point, that like these sort of junky middle bottom pair hands are kind of like 5-out draws.
Yes, absolutely agreed.
So it's like we do have equity, right? Like it's not like we are just forced to give up. It's like if one person bets small and everyone else folds, we could call.
Yeah, but if it goes bet call, I assume you're letting this go.
Yeah, absolutely. Multi-way responsibility, it's not something. It's something that always cracks, all of us, both of us up when people say, "Ah, damn! If you called, I would have called."
Oh my god, that's the best.
Yeah. So yes, I'm happy to check here, and it checks around.
Okay. Pretty worse.
So the turn is where I think I start making some mistakes.
This is it, huh?
Well, not in life, just in the hand.
Yeah,
some serious mistakes.
Clarifications. All right. So what
the turn is the queen of diamonds.
Okay.
So at this point, the small blind checks, and I am like, I think I should bet here because
I don't think that's right.
I don't think anyone should have a queen at this point.
Sure.
And that means we're like fairly likely to have the best hand. And we can get
the best hand.
And we can get value from diamond draws now with the draw on the board and the flop checking through.
But can't so many of can't they have like 6s through 10s a lot too?
Absolutely.
Okay.
They absolutely can. And so, I do think we'll value own ourselves, but
But what are you trying to get? So you're trying to get value like explicitly from diamonds, and that's it.
Yeah. Maybe some like random ace high. Maybe if someone's got like an ace high non-believing hand, maybe ace high with a gut shot, they might call once.
Okay, I mean this is thin. Like, I'm all for thin value. I don't despise it. I think it's interesting.
But I do think it's a little loose, and like I was kind of thinking, wow, like no one has. In the moment, I was really thinking like interesting, like when the flop checks around and the small blind checks for the second time, I feel like I have the best hand a decent chunk of the time. Like there are also a lot of misses in everyone's range.
Yeah, if this were like a limped pot, I would be very inclined to bet. But yeah, I don't know. I don't hate betting here. You do need to protect your equity a little bit. Like you may have the best hand. I think it's probably fine. I wouldn't bet large.
No, I don't. Okay,
so what do you do?
So I bet 25, which is a little between a third and half pot.
Okay. Seems fine.
But I think you're right. I mean, I can obviously just like check and try and take it to showdown or like check give up. Like I don't think that's awful.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
I think it might even be better. Like don't get me wrong.
I think this is a little large, honestly. I would probably bet 20 or 15.
Sure.
Because you're just trying to clear out equity, right? Basically.
Yeah.
So I think you could bet smaller and it would be effective.
Because we'll still get folds from all the total junk that has 2 overs to our hand.
Yeah.
Okay, well I think that's reasonable. And this bet does not accomplish the job as everyone calls.
Everyone calls. Okay. All right.
All 3 players call.
Okay.
So this is just a live poker hand that
we are not ahead.
We are not ahead. I still don't really think anyone has a queen most of the time.
What's terrible about this too, though, is you no longer have you don't even have 5s as an out anymore.
Right. That's true. That's true. So I mean, but again, this was more of like a value bet. Like I might be ahead. If I get it like heads up, I'm reasonably happy, sort of thing.
Sure. Yeah. That's the weird thing about multi-way. But yeah. Okay.
So now the river comes off. I mean, the best card I could ask. One of the best cards I could ask for. It's the 4 of clubs.
Oh, we make a boat.
We make a boat, which I think is going to be the best hand a lot of the time.
I agree.
For reference, we've got about 360 effective right now, about 160 in the pot. We've got 5-4 of hearts, and we just made bottom boat on Queen 4-3, Queen 4, with a backdoor diamond draw that picked up on the turn and did not complete on the river. And the small blind checks for a third time. So now I definitely want to bet, and this time I want to bet for value. But given that we're still 4 ways, I would think I should still be betting on the smaller side.
Yeah, I mean, what are you looking to get called by at this point? It's like mostly non-believing pocket pairs at this point.
Right.
By the way, I do think if you get raised, you may need to fold. Possibly.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm not sure. Just a thought. But like, I wouldn't want to bet a size that makes it so I can't fold to a jam, I guess.
Sure.
If we're targeting those like small, low pocket pair type hands, I mean, we can probably get called for like 100, 110-ish, I guess.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking of going even smaller, given that it's still 4 ways. Like,
sure.
You know, again, it's sort of that like multi-way pressure deal, like, which is not common on the river, I would say. Not really a common spot to run in. Not too common to run into, like, you know, a 4-way pot on the river when there's action.
I actually am going to disagree with your assessment here, and I don't know what the solver would do, but like
solvers won't do anything because they don't do multi-way.
Well, except for Prometheus Poker now. Thanks, Hustler Casino Live. Now you're making us say it. But I think betting on the river into 3 people is inherently polarizing. So I think taking a larger size is fine.
Okay, so if we bet 100 and we got and somebody jammed. If we bet 100, just to think about your scenario, because I think that's a really important thing to think about is can we fold to a jam? Should we fold to a jam? If we bet 100 and someone jammed, we'd have to call 260 to win 360.
Win 360 plus 260.
Right.
So to win a little over 600. So we're getting like slightly better than 2 to 1. I think that's a perfectly permissible fold.
Right.
So I think 100 is probably right.
Yeah, I think it is fine to go more than half pot, because another interesting thing that I picked up from listening to people talk about solvers is if you're heads up and you're in position on the river, the solver almost always likes a sizing of more than half pot.
I've heard that as well. That's really interesting.
Which is something that I certainly have not used in the past. You know, I've certainly made many small bets, but you know, I don't know, I haven't studied solvers enough to know why that is, but maybe it's like if someone has gotten to the river enough, you know, if someone has like likes their hand enough to get to the river, then like, and you are like, maybe betting the river is inherently polarizing.
Yeah,
to some degree.
This is like probing the depths of the poker AI mind.
Yeah, which we are not good at. You know, it's just like, I don't own a solver. It's just like, I've been really into like the Upswing podcast, which apparently just started in January, and where they just talk about solvers and in specific scenarios for like half an hour.
Another example of a podcast you could be listening to improve your poker game.
And you can listen to 2 of them in the time it takes to listen to 1 Bankroll Burners.
Oh my God.
So it's like quadruple the benefits.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so what sizing do you take here?
So I'm at 75, which is just a titch below half pot.
Seems fine.
But I think you may be right that going a little bit bigger we'll still get calls from the same number of hands, and still probably leaves us enough behind to fold.
Yeah.
The hijack calls.
Good.
The cutoff folds, and now the small blind old man jams.
So what kind of price are we getting on this jam? It's
pretty close to what we were saying. It's calling 285 to win 385. So 6
to win,
because 160 plus 160 plus 215 is 375, and then we're calling 285 more.
Yeah, so 160 plus 215 is 375 plus, you said 285 more?
Right.
So
it's more or less the same odds, right? We're calling
yeah.
two. We're
So it's
calling
like slightly better than 2-1.
Yeah. And this is just such a weird spot for me. And I think, like, if this player were, like, a good, like, a balanced player who's finding a lot of bluffs, then we probably, like, have to call here because, when we check the flop, we're just, like, so weighted away from queens.
Which I don't know that we ought to be, by the way. Like, I would check a lot of queens on this flop, I think.
I agree, and I would get to that, but, like, there aren't that, because the queen is paired, like, I think we absolutely should be betting ace queen and king queen.
Sure.
And then, like, we probably are not opening, like, from the low jack, like, all that many more queens. Like, we're probably opening a lot of queen jacks, but, like, probably when we get to, like, queen 10 and queen 9, like, only the suited variety. And there's there's not all that many combos of queens that we would be checking back the flop with. So it is like, our line certainly looks like very weak. Like, it's capped at maybe a 4, and really, how many 4s are we opening?
I would fold.
Against this player, honestly. You think?
Well, that and the fact that the guy behind you called, you're probably chopping with him.
I mean, maybe, but, like, you don't think, like, the guy behind me might be calling with one of those pocket pairs that we're targeting? I wasn't really worried about the guy behind me, I would say.
Yeah, I guess that's fair.
Because, like, there's 1-4 in the deck. He's obviously raising a queen. So
it was the hijack that called, though, not the button. So he's calling with 2 guys behind him, though.
Yeah.
He might not have that. He might not have that many pocket pairs here. I feel like I'm worried about him at least a smidgen. I would fold. I think you have to fold. I don't know. I think that because it's like a Santa Claus guy, like, how many bluffs is he finding? Although maybe he's doing this with a 4, I guess you have to consider. But then again, you're not supposed to call huge bets to chop. In general,
right. That's true. And, like, he probably, I don't know, does he have a missed diamond draw here? Like, is he the type of guy to turn a pair into a bluff? No. Right? Like, do you agree that if this player were balanced, we would want to call here? Or do you think this would still be a fold with the guy behind us?
If this guy were good, like a solid...
Like, would you ever be jamming here if I take this line and then I bet, like, half pot on the river, get called by a guy, and you have, like, 5-6 of diamonds? I guess not even 5-6 of diamonds, because you'd probably be raising 5-6 of diamonds, like, on the turn.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, like, what bluffs do I show up here with? That, like, I check back the flop and then call.
Or, like, pocket 7s. Like, are you going to turn a pocket pair into... could you turn a pocket pair into a bluff here?
I mean, I want to block hands that go with a queen. So, like, I want to have,
Jack
like,
10.
Tens.
Jack 10?
Jack 10 of diamonds.
Jack 10 not of diamonds. Bobby, then you're not calling. Damn, it is hard to find bluffs.
It has to be Jack 10 of diamonds. Or, like, pocket 10s, which I would 3-bet sometimes. I don't have that many bluffs. Like, I think you
3-bet most of the time with there being 2 callers.
Yeah.
Before the flop, right?
I think I probably, like... Well, the flop was rainbow, right?
Yeah. And this is why this is such an interesting point.
Like, maybe I might bluff sometimes here with ace-3 suited if I get here with that hand.
Right.
I might.
But that's like, are you calling the turn after a guy bets and 2 people call? Like...
Yeah, it's tough. I don't know, man. I think this is just like, the fact that we're struggling with this part of the conversation shows how strongly this is a laydown versus this player.
Yep, and I do find the fold.
Okay.
I do fold. The cutoff folds immediately behind me, and he shows me the ace of diamonds and says, "Oh, I thought you had this." So he was basically saying, "I called you with ace," and I interpreted that as him saying, "I called you with ace high because I thought you were bluffing with missed diamonds." Even though I had the ace of diamonds, which, not going to get into. He was a lovely guy. But yeah, we both fold quickly. But as I was kind of thinking about it, I was like, wow, like the small blind's line, like, stinks. Like something about this line just seems so sus.
Yeah, I agree. It's not like, how often does he end up with a queen? I feel like like that he just calls the turn with after it goes like bet call and he just calls.
Exactly. He check calls the turn and then checks the river.
Like unless you like the only thing I can think of is like queen deuce. Like queen deuce suited.
Right. And this is why this was such a weird, because I was like, this guy is just not a bluff. This guy's not bluffing. Right? This guy does not, but like maybe he is. Like maybe he is more like,
yeah.
But like what bluffs does he get here with? So maybe it was, maybe we folded a chop basically.
Yeah.
Like that might be more feasible.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a good laydown though. I do. So.
Yeah, it was just a really interesting spot where, because I was thinking about it after, I was like, I have to talk about this one. Not because I felt like I played it, you can argue about opening or betting the turn or betting the river, or I guess not betting the river, but betting the turn. Plenty of things we can argue about, but I felt like the fold was, I felt like I agree that I should be folding there, but I just wanted to go over that line because I was like, there's, it doesn't really line up.
Yeah, I agree. That's a little odd. Maybe you might have gotten owned. But...
Maybe he had queen 4. That could make sense too. Maybe.
Interesting. The one combo.
Like you make the nuts on the turn.
Is there even a combo of queen 4 suited available?
No.
There is.
Queen 4 of diamonds. Nope.
No, there's I don't know. Definitely, so, I agree. You might have gotten owned, but like sometimes in poker you're gonna get owned. So.
Yep, I'm perfectly happy folding that and not knowing,
Yeah.
Okay. Well, cool. Let's move on to the last one.
Yeah, so I have a hand from my session today. So while I was waiting for the 2-5 game to open, I do play 1-2. I did play 1-2. I've noticed
it's 2-2, right?
2-2. I'm sorry.
No problem.
Yeah, I've noticed that like a lot of the 2-5 regs won't play 2-2 while they wait, and I do find that kind of curious. I'll have to ask one of them why that is. Like there might be a good reason, but
it is annoying. Like I was telling you, like I played 1-2, and I usually do it chasers when I'm waiting for the 1-3 game because there's so many tables of 1-2. I almost always get a seat there first, and it is annoying to like play with people who are just like clearly just there for the promos, get like annoyed when you raise, and just like. Are even more like nitty and tight than 1-3, which is already like a low stakes live reggy game.
Yeah, no, I think it's like that's probably it, and like I do think that's reasonable because sometimes it is a little annoying playing the 2-2 game a little bit. I don't know. I actually I'll take that back. It doesn't annoy me, but I can see how it could be annoying.
Yeah, it doesn't annoy me too much. Like I do play it because I think it's always I'd rather be playing poker than not when I go up to play poker, and like I do often still find myself in interesting spots. I'm not putting the game down. I'm just saying I could see certain players getting impatient or upset or for whatever reason not want to play that game.
Yeah, no, I think it's reasonable. I'll have to ask some of them though. They're kind of reasoning because I'm a bit curious. But yeah, so at any rate, I was playing 2-2, and this hand is from the 2-2. Session. Funnily enough, I think this was the most interesting hand of today's session, which was from my like hour of 2-2. But so we're 270 effective in this hand. It's a 200 cap on the game, and so we are 270 effective with the main villain here. And this hand starts off as all good low stakes hands do with 4 limps. One of the limps was a post, for what it's worth,
but he checked his option.
I don't know what the positions of the limpers were. Sorry.
That's fine. I wrote 4 limps immediately.
Yeah, 4 limps. There's 8-handed. And I'm on the button with ace of diamonds, 10 of clubs. I go ahead and make it 20.
Nice.
Yeah, I think I could limp this hand behind sometimes, but by and large, I'd rather just raise it.
I don't even really like limping. I never liked limping offsuit aces. Just because you put yourself in like terrible spots post flop. Like I much prefer to raise or fold. Like if I have like ace 8, ace 6 offsuit here, I'm probably just folding.
Oh, for sure. I'm mucking those hands. I'm mucking ace 9.
Yeah.
But I don't know. You're right.
No, that is exactly how I prefer to play them. Like, if you look at like the EV, it might be close. I don't really know, but I just would prefer to get it heads up in position with a hand that plays way better heads up.
Yeah, agreed. Funny that you would think this ends up in position, though.
Well, it definitely ends up in position, but maybe not.
I mean, sorry, that you think it ends up heads up.
No, so, I know how these games play.
Yeah, so anyway, the big blind calls.
Oh, no.
The hijack calls. and who is the poster, by the way, and the cutoff calls.
It's just such a bad feeling when you raise a hand that you're like, I'm gonna ISO, and you do it right before the big blind, and then the big blind like thinks for a while and calls, and you're like, oh my god, now every limper, like they've opened up the floodgates.
Yeah, I was pretty concerned when he called. I was glad it was only 2 more callers. I thought it was going to be worse.
You know what I mean? If the big blind folds, then like there's a chance that everyone folds, honestly.
Right. If the big blind calls, there's no way. So it's like for sure going multi-way.
Okay, so there's a bunch in the pot. Like it's 85-ish.
Yeah, that's about right. Well, yeah, about that. So now the flop is Ace of Hearts, Jack of Diamonds, and the 4 of Diamonds.
Oops. Okay, so Ace of Diamonds, Jack of Hearts. No, Ace of Hearts, Jack of Diamonds, 4 of Diamonds. We've got Ace 10 with the Ace of Diamonds.
Correct.
So we got top pair, probably the best kicker, one would hope. Yes. And backdoor. We have the Ace of Diamonds, which gives us some additional backdoor equity.
Yes. So pretty interesting board. And it gets even more interesting when the hijack, the gentleman who posted, now leads for $20.
Okay. And what does the cutoff do?
The cutoff folds.
Okay.
So I elect to just call here. I think I could raise sometimes and get called by like a worse ace. Like I feel like he has a lot of aces when he does this.
When he donks small, absolutely, and I will happily talk about donking any episode. When when you kind of think about donks, you want to think about small versus big donks, because large donks actually do often wind up being polarized, strong draws and thick value. Like I've seen people, donk across multiple streets with like sets just because they don't know how to play it correctly. Or, and it often works out for them to their credit, so correctly maybe isn't the right word, but, maybe standardly. But yes, absolutely. Small donks often top pair. If the cutoff called, I might be more inclined to raise.
Sure. Yeah, collect some of that dead money.
Yeah,
I think we can get called by like ace 9, ace 8, ace 7, etc. if we raise here. But I also think it's probably okay to just call.
Yeah, we're on the button, especially being on the button. Like, we don't really mind if the big blind calls behind us. Like, sometimes we do, but I think it's okay.
Right.
So I'm on board. I'm on board with calling. I think if the cutoff had called, I'd probably be raising a lot.
Yeah,
but
I think that's fair.
With just the hijack and us, I'm happy to call.
So I do call, and the big blind calls as well.
And that doesn't surprise me because he is getting just an insane price.
Yeah, he doesn't have to have much equity.
Yeah.
So the turn rolls off the 6 of Hearts. So we now have 2 flush draws.
Turn rolls off the 6 of Hearts. Okay.
And the hijack, the big blind checks, unsurprisingly, and the hijack bets $20 again.
Okay. Well, now I think I definitely want to raise.
For sure. I'm like, oh, he has ace 9 or ace 8. Like almost always when he does this, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, I think it maybe even like ace 5.
Sure.
Like, yes, yeah. It certainly feels like he's got an ace, maybe even a jack. To be honest.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting. I don't want to raise too big because I do want to get called, but I also want to raise big enough that the big blind doesn't come along.
Agreed. I had the same, and also like with stack depths too. Like, I think raising too big we could get pot stuck.
Yeah, we don't, and also we don't need to raise big because, like, on a brick river, I do want to jam.
Sure, agreed, and that was my plan.
Yeah, so I'd want to raise, but if we make it like 80, like we're still, that's gonna, like, even if we only make it 80, like the pot will be like 300, and we'll have like a half pot that behind. So it's kind of a weird stack size. I almost wonder. No, we shouldn't jam ourselves. That would just be silly.
I think jamming is an overplay.
Yeah, so it's just a weird spot. Stack sizes are a little awkward, but I do want to raise. Yeah.
Yeah, and I actually make it 80. I had the exact same thought as you.
Wow. That doesn't mean it's good to our listeners.
No, we're getting more in sync and worse at the same time.
Okay, we make it 80.
It's like how dogs learn like the worst habits from each other. Like two dogs that have never interacted before, you introduce them and like they'll like see the stupidest thing the other dog does and start doing that forever. I don't know if you've had that experience, but that's what my dogs do.
I haven't, but I've heard your dogs are quite stupid anyway.
Well, one of them is. But I love him very much. So I make it 80, and the big blind folds, and the hijack continues.
Wonderful. So things are just coming up swimmingly.
Yep. Yes, exactly. This is a very standard hand. There's nothing exciting that happens.
Okay, so it says 170 and the pot's 305, and now the river's gonna come and he's gonna donk jam, huh?
Correct.
Okay. Well, what's the river?
So the river is the 5 of hearts.
Okay, so it completes the backdoor heart draw, and it also completes some weird backdoor straight draws.
Correct. Yeah. So, and by the way, you're saying we have 170 behind. That isn't what I have here, although I may have math wrong.
Well, because we started with like 270, we put in 20, then 20, then 80. Or we started with 290 and we put in, or did we start with?
Yeah, we started with 270.
So we have 150.
Yeah, that's what I have.
All right.
Okay. Yeah, we have a half pot size bet behind.
And he just goes ahead and leads out for all of it.
Rips it in, baby.
All right, and this hijack jams. Wow.
Yeah.
It's a weird spot because at first I was like, oh, good, we have the ace of diamonds. We have like a great calling hand if the diamond draw, like flush draw completes. And then nope. Backdoor.
Yeah, backdoor hearts come in. And I was thinking, like, in the moment, I was like, what the heck do you play this way? Like, I actually said that out loud, basically. I was like, what is this hand? I was like, ace 5 would be sick. That's what I said out loud. I was like, ace 5 could be, right? Because, like, I feel like this makes sense for a lot for ace 5.
Yep.
But, like, I also think this could be missed diamonds a lot. That was my thought in game, anyway. I don't know if that's true.
It's possible. And, like, the ace of diamonds doesn't really matter in that sense because it's paired, right? So he wouldn't be doing this with like missed diamonds with the ace of diamonds.
I think like missed diamonds with the ace of diamonds, he would have, like, most low stakes players will go like balls to the wall with like ace x of diamonds on the flop,
right?
You know. So I don't really think I don't think that, like, the fact that we have the ace of diamonds doesn't really just decrease the chances of him having a flush draw as played.
Yep.
So I don't know. What do you think? Honestly, like, am I just being too nice to myself about this? Like, is this just like, oh, a low stakes player donk jammed the river? Like,
I'm snap calling.
Oh, you're snapping.
I think so. I mean, we're getting an insane price, right? We only need to be good 25% of the time. Okay. There aren't that many combos of ace 5, which I think is like the only. Maybe he's got hearts somehow. Like maybe he's got jack 10 of hearts or something like that. That is possible, right? If he like, and then he just like turned a pair in a flush draw and didn't know what to do. But I think he might do this with like a. Do you think he would do this with like ace 9?
No.
Oh, well, maybe not. I don't know. I think when the price is this good, I'm just more in a low, especially at like a very low stakes live game, like 1-2, 2-2, or 1-3. I'm just more inclined when the price is this good to just like shrug call because of like what we like to call the low stakes spaz factor.
You're right. Could this just be like, you know, pocket tens or something?
Right. Like this could just be, you might call like I don't want to level myself into a fold when like a portion of his range is just a hand that you just never consider that you beat.
Well, we do call, and his hand is one that I never considered, which is Jack 4 of hearts.
Wow. Yeah. So that's interesting, right? Because our typical philosophy on a small donk, and especially a donk bet, same bet, is that hand is heavily, heavily weighted towards one pair.
Yes, agreed.
Right? So him showing up with a 2 pair here is like shocking.
Yeah, agreed.
So like, and if he's doing this with like Jack 4 of hearts, like he absolutely might be doing this with like other hands also.
Yeah, I think it is really unusual for a player to do this with 2 pair. Like, I've almost never seen it, but yeah, I was just like, wow, what a hand. I went like in the moment I was like, cool, dude. I mean, I had the same thought as you. Like, I was like, the price is absurd. Like, whatever, I'm gonna call. But like, yeah, I thought this hand was very amusing.
Like, you kind of have to think about if he is like limp calling, or not even limp calling, check option calling with Jack 4 of hearts, and then like taking this triple donk line.
Yeah.
Like, one would imagine that he's doing that with like a bunch of random hands.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That like many of which we probably beat.
Sure.
So that's kind of my point, is like, and I kind of console myself with that a lot, and it may not always be true, because like he might not construct this triple donk range with a, you know.
How do you construct your triple donk range?
But you know, I've had the same thought. Like, everyone players had that thing where you like you get stacked like with aces against like, you know, 10-5 that hits a 2-pair or something. You know, and you just kind of have to think, wow, like I literally was getting like 3-1 on the river, and if he's doing this with 10-5, then, you know, I'm gonna win this hand so many times when he just has some other random hand that he does the same thing with.
Sorry.
It's all right.
Yeah.
Shaky cam has been turned on.
Yeah, well, I agree. I think I don't regret my call. I would do it again, but I did find this to be a very funny hand.
It is a very funny hand, and a good one to finish with. It's a good, you know, low stakes classic.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us again, everybody, for another hour of Burning Bankrolls. We had a good time. We hope you did too. And if you did, consider smashing the like button, snap calling the subscribe button, snap subscribe, and leave a comment about how we could have played the hand better,
or how you construct your triple donk range.
Yeah, let us know in the comments. Pause the video right now and let us know in the comments how you construct your triple donk range. Alrighty.
Great.
Bye, everybody.
Good night.